Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports, the independent pollster who is really happy right now. And believe it or not, it's not because Donald Trump won the presidency early this morning. It's because we were dead accurate in a way that, listen, I don't think we could have been more accurate if somebody had just handed us the answers. And people who've been following us know that we're pretty comfortable with our calls that people have laughed at relentlessly that Donald Trump was going to win the national popular vote. But state polling is a whole different story. And I just crunched our accuracy numbers, and you are not going to believe this. They're absolutely wild. But Victor Davis Hanson, really respected writer, are elections utter losers and winners. The deservedly losers, the polls, with the exception, once again, of Atlas Intel, Trafalgar, and Rasmussen. They were all off and way off in the Senate races. The pollster's reputation is again in full reverse and now back to their nadir of 2020 and 2016. Yep, I've been calling these people out this entire cycle as shilling for Democrats and being absolutely shameless liars. Oh, shameless. Many shamelessly warped their data in the last 2 weeks. Well, actually, they were doing it in August and September too, to gin up Harris momentum, fundraising, and voter turnout. Yeah, this whole thing was a psyop, and the pollsters absolutely played along. Now, I will say that some of the conservatives took some of our stuff a little out of context too. There was this article, Breitbart, exclusive, Rasmussen head pollster predicts Trump landslide, likens to 1980 Reagan-Carter election, a major political realignment. Now, ton of caveats here. I will back up what's in this article. There's a major political realignment. That's right. Republican Party is turning into the party of Donald Trump and MAGA, and that is hard to poll. That was the context. It's really hard to figure out what's going on right now. And I said, we could get a landslide, and I think that's what we saw last night. And when I said 1980 Reagan-Carter, I was talking about the fact that the polls were lying that entire time. And afterwards, they're like, golly gee, why were we so off? It must have been some come-from-behind victory in the last week for Ronald Reagan. No, it's because the pollsters were lying. And also, there was a third-party spoiler in the 1980s election. If you took Anderson and added all of his votes, mostly back to Carter, I think you would have seen Reagan up 4 or 5 points. Well, Donald Trump's at 3.5. So we actually came, in my opinion, pretty close to 1980. But the point is, all of these parallels with the mainstream media, the way the race was tracked, the way the race was called, and the fact that Ronald Reagan himself was an individual that was kind of averse to the status quo, just like Donald Trump. Now, we talked about our final call in this video, and you should go look at it if you want to know more in detail. But basically what we said is that Donald Trump was going to win the national popular vote with a 3-point margin, and we walked through the state maps, and we made an error and corrected it in the following video about Iowa. But our base case map was 297 electoral votes for Trump, and that was an outlier too, because anybody who wasn't on the right, all of the mainstream media outlets, regardless of what the polls were saying, were putting out polls that showed Kamala Harris winning. It's like their managing editors literally would not show Donald Trump winning at all. And that's not what happened, obviously. So they did a massive disservice to their readers. But anyways, the 297 was based on, I'll actually show it. Here's the map. 297 was based on Donald Trump winning every battleground, which our polling showed he would, except for Michigan, which we had Harris gaining by 1 point. So anything within 1 point we put as a toss-up here. And that gives Trump 297. Of course, he won Michigan. It looks like he's winning Arizona and Nevada too. That brings him to 312, which quite frankly is a sweep of all the battlegrounds. And we said, here's what we said. The state polling shows that Donald Trump should win most of the battlegrounds. But if the polling is left at all, then Donald Trump should sweep them comfortably. And again, as I'll show you, even our polling was too left. But let's talk about the national popular vote. Here are our final crosstabs. And we have Donald Trump, 49%, Kamala Harris, 46%, 3 points. Now, for most of this race, week after week, recently, we've been putting out Donald Trump +2. So the +3 might be a bit of a surprise, but this is a massive sample of data, almost all of our data from October. And we sharpened the pencil a little bit with weightings, made the population a point or two more white, a little bit less black, and shifted the ages around a little bit. And we got Donald Trump +3. You can go demographic by demographic. In my opinion, there's really no answer to compare this to yet, because I looked at the early CNN exit polling, and I think it's absolute BS because I've heard reports of some exit polling showing that Donald Trump was getting a quarter of the black vote. But there, it says that Donald Trump only got 12%, which is basically what he got last time out. And we all know the black vote definitely changed this time around. So don't even bother going to CNN and looking at this stuff. That's probably the last time we'll ever go to that site either. But we do have Donald Trump winning among 40 to 64-year-olds by 5, among 65 and older by 4, but losing the 18 to 39-year-old by 2. Listen, that's pretty good. And let me tell you, too, what you probably heard on the media over and over again, like a mantra, is that Donald Trump has a hard ceiling at 47%. No, he's been at 49% this entire time. Turns out Kamala Harris is the one with the ceiling. And the reason that it came out that way is because all of their polls are bogus. They're leftward leaning. They always show that Donald Trump has a favorability disadvantage. They always poll Trump deranged Republicans. That's how they do their work. Yeah, we had Hispanics going to Trump by 5 points. I don't know if that's going to hold up. The Hispanic population is pretty hard to poll. And I guess we'll see where independent numbers come out, but we had independents going to Trump by 7. But here's the Real Clear Politics aggregate. And if you look at the trend, this is the shill period right here. Boom. All of a sudden, Trump dropped a point when Kamala Harris went in the race. It's like everybody gave her a shove to get her over the starting line. And then they massively shift left. They shilled for Harris all fall. And then right at the end, they decided, well, it's time to save our credibility. And Trump, whoop, look at that. All of a sudden, Trump got this great momentum. Where'd it come from? Oh, he never lost it. This was all fake all here, this whole period. And Trump was actually up in the national popular vote. And nobody said, sorry, Rasmussen, for yelling at you guys. Looks like you were right. And actually what happened is all kind of these final calls did a little bit of window dressing for Harris just to paint this little blue circle right here. And I think we have this ridiculous NPR Marist call to thank for that. Listen, they're 8 points to the left. Imagine that. Left-leaning organization puts out leftward polls. All right, let's take a look. We had Trump plus 3. So did the Wall Street Journal. CNBC and Fox News had Trump plus 2. Atlas Intel had Trump plus 1. Now, it's not fair to hold them accountable for that one because let's just take a look at the past polling. Atlas Intel, Trump plus 3s, Trump plus 2s this whole time. I don't know why their final call showed movement to the left. Probably they fell prey to what we saw on the panel, which is Republicans voting and then dropping out of the panels. But yeah, I think they did good. Good for them. Now let's check on who else do we have? What are some of the others? Fox News. So yeah, they got Trump plus 2. It's kind of in line with their other polling, and they do lean left, in my opinion. But they painted a big blue circle here for all of September. Probably a pretty bad call. And Wall Street Journal, yeah, same thing. They polled once after the switcheroo, got Trump up. Right at the end of the DNC, they polled again, got Harris up. And I mean, listen, this isn't bad, but there's not a lot of weight behind these numbers. Look at us. Week after week after week. Look at this, guys. Donald Trump is going to win the national popular vote, and he has this entire time. And everybody laughed at us. Everybody was blue. Everybody spent August and September wallowing in this massive Democrat response bias. And listen, Donald Trump, people know who he is. An assassination, a debate, nothing moved these numbers. A Puerto Rican joke isn't going to move those numbers. So we said 3 points, and here is the national popular vote. And a caveat, they're still counting Nevada, Arizona, Maine, and Alaska. Alaska's deep red. There will be some offsets here. There's probably some blue areas that have to come in. I don't think these numbers are going to change much. Maybe Harris will pick up some numbers. Right now, it's 3.5%. Listen, we had 3. That's a 0.5% miss. The margin of error was 1 point. I really don't think anybody could be expected to nail the national popular vote as well as we did. And quite frankly, I think these numbers are going to close. We might be exactly right when all the counting is done. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I would break my arm patting myself on the back. So yeah, there's the map. So I want to talk about state polling. Again, state polling is really hard. We were kind of bad at it in 2020. Listen, we were accurate in 2016, 2020 nationally, but in some of the states, we were 3, 4, 5, even 6 points off, of course, to the left as a right-wing pollster like we are. Here is all of our state polling. If you have a moment, I would really appreciate it if you went to these sites, Heartland Institute, Numbers USA, and American Thinker, really great conservative blog, signed up for their newsletter, followed them on Twitter, because we would not have been able to do this state polling without them. And I think the fact that we did this polling had some influence on the outcome of the race. I really do not think we would have seen a polling surge back for Trump, because what was going on in the headlines didn't really warrant it. They really might have tried to give her a tailwind all the way up to Election Day. And yet at the end, they jerked to the right to try and save their credibility. So some of these states we only polled once, some of them we polled multiple times. So this column here is if we polled it more than once, it's the average. And this column here is Biden. So we only just use the Trump versus Harris numbers. And here is the actual reported results as of now, the day after Election Day, acknowledging that there are 3 states still counting. Although 89, 86% in, these should be pretty baked in. Within the margin of error, did our average come within the final results margin of error? And out of 14 states we polled, it's a yes for 11 of them, 79%. I don't know, you might not think that's great. For polling, that's a phenomenal hit rate. And to be honest with you, 2 of those were really tough. The misses were in really deep red states where people were crawling over broken glass. I don't think there's any way I could have predicted the kind of groundswell that we saw in Ohio and Texas. And the other one was in Nevada, really tough state to poll. And the independents really broke hard there to the right in a way that surprised me. So I am really happy with that. And if you take the final poll and not the average, we're still batting 9 out of 14 or 64%. But this is why you would poll a state more than once. This is why you need to go out into the field. This is why when Morning Consult drops a 9,000 person poll, we kind of laugh at them, because I would rather drop 3 or 4 2,000 person polls. You get a lot more information, a lot more confidence in the outcome. But here is the error between our average and the actual reported result. And you'll notice that these numbers are really small. We missed 4 points in Nevada and 4 points in Ohio and 8 points in Texas. So Texas is the one that killed us. I don't know what y'all are doing down there, but it's really messing up my numbers. But the point is if you average these out, the average error across these states, 0.8%, well within the margin of error, which in most of these polls was 3%. And since it's got a negative sign in front of it, it means that we, on average, were leaning Harris. The right-wing pollster Rasmussen reports gave a polling advantage for Harris. And this is why Donald Trump swept the battlegrounds. He outperformed what we said. Let's just average the battlegrounds. Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Negative 0.9%. We were a point to left in the battleground states. Now, this is the error from our final call to the actual. And you can see it's actually 0.4% to Harris. This is basically dead accurate. I mean, I can't. Look at, we actually nailed 3 states at exactly basically 0. New Mexico, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania with our final calls. That's incredible. And here's the thing. If I took Texas, yeah, this is like a little bit of what-ifism. If we didn't poll Texas, our average error would basically be 0. You cannot do better than this in polling. Ann Seltzer, the gold standard pollster of Iowa, just put out a result that missed by 17 points in a state she lives in and is renowned for polling. And we had essentially 0 error. So I guess that's enough tooting my own horn. We did a really good job, but we're going to keep being Rasmussen reports, which means polling on all the topics that are absolute no-nos, being industry pariahs, making fun of people on Twitter that absolutely suck, like Nate Silver, Nate Cohn, and most especially Alan Lichtman. Man, that guy he's just got to retire. And of course, Ann Seltzer. And if you see any other polling clowns, come to Twitter at Mark_R_Mitchell and shoot me a DM or make a post so I can laugh at them too. At this point, I really don't know what else can be done to fix the industry because time and time again, look, we're in another situation where maybe they didn't miss as much as the last time, but it is still an absolute embarrassment. I really don't think the industry is going to change until legacy corporate mainstream media dies. And the good news is, man, as of last night, it looks like, at least for election day, it really has. I was on like a dozen different live streams where millions of people were watching those things. I think a lot less people were watching MSNBC and even Fox News last night. So it looks like we're in store for a really interesting 4 years because I don't think all of a sudden the left is just going to relent and let Donald Trump run roughshod over America with his right-wing fascist agenda. And I think we're going to see a lot of crazy stuff right now because Democrats are at peak cognitive dissonance. The amount of histrionics on Twitter is absolutely appalling. I mean, we even have people who have spent the last 4 years saying that all of our elections are safe and secure, now accusing Donald Trump of somehow stealing last night's election. And listen, there were 10 or 15 minutes last night where I did think there was a major problem, but something happened behind the scenes. I guess we'll never know what. And the Rust Belt decided not to stop counting. And here we are with a Trump landslide, and it looks like he's going to maintain the House and pick up seats in the Senate, which we also called pretty well too. Maybe in a week or two, I'll take a look at our Senate calls. We did pretty well, but the Senate was really tough this year. I think we said it would probably be about a 55-seat Senate for Republicans, and that there would be a modest pickup at the House based on a generic Republican +3 ballot. So I think it's going to take us a couple weeks to figure out where the House lands. There are some really close races there that are probably going to devolve into legal knife fights. But I am finally going to take a rest. I hope you appreciate our hard work. If you do, like the video, follow us on Twitter at Rasmussen_poll and at YouTube at Rasmussen_poll as well. Hope to see you there, and thanks for watching.